Hey Lance, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Um, I've had some slight technical problems
Yeah,
earlier,
well,
but they seem to have.
that's the nature of podcasting. So,
Yeah, the nature of podcasting is the occasional failure. Yeah, it's true in the technology, but we helped to reinvent it, didn't we? So
yes, we did.
you got to take that with it. Yeah, we were just recently talking about what was it that inspired us to start this epic journey into writing the history of podcasting, and you began to tell me the story. Would you like to continue with that because it's a very interesting story?
Well, let me step back a little bit in time. So, when I did my podcast tour of the sort of Liverpool area, and I got to go to Cambridge University and speak there, I realized I was doing this kind of historic venture, and I started thinking in terms of history because obviously podcasting was at the time very new medium, what we knew to be a revolutionary medium. Of course, a lot of people didn't buy into that at the time, but of course they buy into it now.
Yeah.
And so going back to that time, I knew that there was something historic happening and that I was a part of it, in part because I was trying to do things that were, if not the first, one of the first people to do things. And so it does go back for me to that time. But more recently, now being almost 10 years ago, um, it was my 50th birthday. And my good friend Dan Class, who was the guy that got me into podcasting, told me about podcasting. He had heard of one of my podcasts where I kind of, in a cheeky way, said, "Oh, well, I won't have a Wikipedia page until I'm dead." And he knew it was my 50th birthday, so he was like, I'm going to make a Wikipedia page for this guy because you've done enough things with the Lance Anderson podcast experiment, the Cambridge stuff, and blah, 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 setting up the LA podcasters, what have you. And so it was up for maybe a week, and then it suddenly got taken down. And not only was mine taken down, but Dan's was taken down, and which is absurd. And then the LA podcaster one was taken down. And so suddenly we were encountering this problem where the editors of Wikipedia, who were not experts at all about podcasting, they were saying, well, it doesn't have these supporting articles and what have you. Now, at the time that we were doing some of these somewhat historic things, there wasn't a good way of cataloging digitally uh, the articles that supported the the events that happened, because it was in that phase where there was still, print newspapers were more common than digital and all of that. So it was hard to kind of go back and get, because a lot of these things the links had died or expired or what have you. So it was sort of difficult to support some of the evidence they needed to say, okay, well, this does qualify as worthy of Wikipedia. So a friend of mine from the LA podcasters, a guy, I can't even think of his name right now. Anyways, he said, well, let's set up a little Wikipedia style thing for the LA podcasters, but also the early podcasters, and let's start on that journey. So that would have been late 2015 that he was talking about that, and it was sort of where it started for me, where we realized it's like we can't rely on Wikipedia or the editors of Wikipedia who know nothing about podcasting to tell the true story of podcasting. We have to do it ourselves, and that's sort of when it started for me. It had a lot of fits and starts and what have you. But then when you and I started talking, which seriously, I think it was about 6 years ago when we really kind of started to kind of hone in on what we might do, we realized that we needed to document it ourselves and get it out there ourselves because we couldn't count on anybody else to do it.
It's true to
And
say
nobody,
that there were a lot of sketchy versions of the history,
right, right,
and I remember us didn't know each other at that point, but we were laughing at the irony of the nonsense that we were reading,
right,
and
right.
at the same time, we were kind of a bit offended by it, and
Yes,
that
absolutely,
was the
absolutely.
difference because other people would laugh and just forget about it,
Right,
and for some
right.
reason we were thinking this isn't good,
Well, they love to say things like podcasting didn't start till about 2010, and all of that. Until things kind of got more publicly widely known. But as you know, the movement really started around 2004 with obviously precursors that before then that both of us were involved in the precursors.
But it's interesting because not everybody would take it on to right the wrong. The wrong being a very bad and inaccurate version of the truth. And
Right.
I wouldn't have thought of using that word truth so much, but several people, once they've understood that this is a project that we're taking very seriously, they use that word. And I wasn't thinking obsessively about truth. But actually, Neville Hobson was one of the first people to make a point of it. He said, "I'm looking forward to what you make because I know it's going to be the truth." And for
Right.
him, it's a big deal. And I actually, for me, it is. It's just I wouldn't have used that language. And I don't know. Maybe it felt a bit pompous. The truth,
Right.
but it's true to say that I don't like it when people are being tricked. I think
Right.
that's the thing for me. It's not so much. I'm sure truth is good, but um, I like it when people are not winding people up or just selling them a lie. There's enough of that in the world.
Right. Well, I also feel that a lot of the podcasters that started, let's say, in around 2010, let's say, they had no investment in those early days, and so they wanted it to seem as if like really things started when they started. So there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on there, yeah, and even some of those articles that are out on the internet, people, you know, presenting themselves as podcast experts or teachers or whatever they are, were putting out false information because they hadn't started until 2010. So they needed to tell the story as if podcasting didn't really start until about the time they started. So I think we were up against some of that kind of stuff going on too.
Yeah, absolutely true. I think also people were just wanting to seem to be, very intelligent and very
Right,
very knowledgeable,
right,
and obviously they're neither of those things.
right.
Um, but how long have we been working on this now, just as a concept, as and then eventually as a project? 6 years? Are we in
I
year
think it's about
seven
6 years
now?
that it's something like that. Yeah, when we
Yeah.
talked about the book idea and all of that. So yeah, it goes back to about then.
Well, the book idea was just, I think, more thinking how on earth do we get this out to other people, and it's a
Right,
very old fashioned way of doing it. I
right,
mean, you could go crazy and start handing out leaflets in the
right,
in the high
right,
street, couldn't you? But
right.
people would just ignore you, and you'd cry until you died. And so that wasn't the way to do it. And plus, actually, I'm old enough to think, how much time have I got left? Could I put enough time into this project to make something of it that meant that people would think it's an interesting thing, and maybe it's of value, and not value because I think it wants to have value, but value because it's history. It's one of the things that I haven't mentioned to you ever, I think, believe, is that my mother, once she'd got us all at school, the five of us, she went back to college and she learned to be a teacher, and she taught for I think 35 years after that. She majored. It's not the same phrase we would use, but majoring, you know what I mean. The main
Right.
subject, you have to pick one, was history. So she'd
Mm.
not only take us all around to beautiful churches and Neolithic circles and anything you name it, and she
Right.
would know that her stuff. And I used to love that, and so I've always had, because of that, a kind of a good idea about history and thinking it's something that's valuable. And if you know your history, maybe you can avoid things in this day and age, because
Yeah.
you've got some stories from the past, and we can learn from them. And I think
Yes.
that's what it was. I think that's one of the. So it meant that I felt quite comfortable doing something that was um, to do with archives and finding out what the truth really is, and
Yeah.
and checking stuff out. So how far have we got now to actually starting to turn the research we've done, the interviews that we've made, and trying to work out how much it would cost us to make a decent, intelligible, interesting kind of a book. How long has it taken in that process, do you think, out of the 7 years? The first 3 or 4 years is probably just talking about it. But what about when it got serious? How long do you think?
I think we've been serious the last 2 years. I think the last 2 years we put a lot of time in. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it goes back a bit further than that. I mean, I've got the first drawings on the back of on paper and just sketching
Mm-hmm.
stuff goes back, I think, to 2022.
Okay, so like 3 years,
Yeah,
three
three
years or
three
so.
years maybe, but
So I started a
you know,
group in
so
on
what,
Facebook.
what we've
I started a group called Podcast Artifacts, and then another one, History of Podcasting, and they kind of exploded a little bit because a lot of people had dropped out of podcasting, those early people, and they were kind of excited to even be kind of reconnecting with people they knew back in the day and all of that. But what we had is we had a group of people that were there at the beginning, and they were verifiable because we were there with them, so we
yeah,
could pretty much verify almost everybody that was a part of it.
that's true.
And it was a relatively small group of people that were active in podcasting in terms of like leadership roles, like yourself leading the UK podcasters, me, LA podcasters, those kind of people. It was a fairly small group of people in those early days, so it was relatively
Yeah.
easy to verify who was who. Um, and so having that group allowed us to access those people's information, and which we've been doing.
Well, it's true. The other thing, we were very, one of the reasons that we knew we could kick off and really try and get this thing written is because we knew we could go to people. We knew them. They were our
Right,
friends, which helped.
right,
And
right.
I'm sure I wasn't a precursor, except I was, because I was very early on blogging. And I
Right,
remember when suddenly you could put MP3 files in a blog, which was
right,
kind of a precursor
right.
to podcasts.
Yeah, and for me, it was using real audio. I was posting real audio on a website. So I was kind of trying to do it, but it couldn't quite. The technology wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah, but we it drew us in, didn't it? Because we were in it. We thought, wow, we can get our stuff to the whole
Right,
world
right,
for very
right,
little, if not
right.
nothing. I remember the first time I ever got a really strong cable connection, and it was hugely expensive. I mean, I had the money at the time, but it was something like £2,000 a
Oh
month
wow.
just to have. Yeah, it was one of those, and you had to turn it on, to be able to connect to people. But then I could do what then were huge files. You wouldn't think twice about it. Now you have 10 of them on your phone
Right,
now,
right.
but you could do stuff and send it over to the States or France or Germany, and it was hugely expensive.
ISDN.
I
Yeah.
couldn't wait to get rid of them because they were big and made a noise as well. But the
Right,
fact is, though, that I was prepared to invest not just my time in these things, but if I needed to get the money to do it, I'd try and do that. And it wasn't about the money for me. It was about how do I make these things work. It's the same with everybody else
right.
does with all sorts of things that they use all the time. So how far do you think we'll be able to go then this year? We've just coming to the end of January, and on the 29th, which is 2 days time, then we officially kick off the crowdfunding. We've got Indiegogo sort of sitting there doing nothing for
Yes.
2 weeks, whilst actually for me it's been great because I haven't bothered. I
Right,
know that I'm not worried about that. We're gonna kick in and start trying to get
right,
people to give us their money. But the other thing is this, that um, they're very different crowdfunders. The crowdfunding one is the one that I like the most. I mean, I'm not particularly pro-British about everything, but I quite like that one. Indiegogo's a bit old now, 6 or 7 years old,
yeah.
but
I
I've
do too.
changed it a few times, and that's fun.
Right.
I'm surprised by being in sort of you know, uh, well, my emails are suddenly filling up with people wanting to take a bit of money so they can give us people who might give us $5.
Right,
But if
right,
you think about what we're raising and why, most of it is going to be to bring people in to be a team and and give them specific tasks.
right,
Because if we don't do that, we won't be able
right.
to write it because it's such a big history.
Right. So the problem has been that it's been mostly the two of us trying to make it all happen and doing the bootstrapping thing. So we were
Yeah.
trying to fund everything ourselves pretty much. And you know, you may hear a plane. We are near the airport. Um, so, you know, at this point, we realized we got to build a team. And there's no other way around it because we can't do it all ourselves.
Yeah.
And we need funds to help build that team.
Yeah, and
And that's where we
I
are right
remember
now.
doing the well, we got some good advice last year. We really did. Debbie was amazing, and you know what it actually takes to be a
Yes.
to turn a business into a publishing business is which is what we've done, and Debbie was
Yes.
great. She I remember also trying to revise the financial projections because it's going to cost a heck of a lot, and how on earth would we do this? And so I
Yes.
decided that we'd have to just to revisit it. And I remember passing it around to a few people. Paul Parkinson, he gave me such a
Mm-hmm.
big feeling of people understand what we're doing, and gave me a lift when he said he was
Right.
impressed by the financial changes because we thought about it and made and done a lot of work. And Paul said it was the Goldilocks. The Goldilocks meaning it's not too big and it's not too small,
Right.
and that was good. That the fact
Right.
that we're on the right
Right.
path
Right.
is still going to be a lot of cash to raise. I worked out what was it was just for people for year one. It's 80,000. That's pounds,
Right.
not dollars.
Well, and it
80,
is a worldwide project that we're working on because one of the key parts of this is that we want to tell the international story of the history of podcasting, not just the American UK version of the history of podcasting. The people are out there, and it's just a matter of us connecting with them, and hopefully, stuff like this will help do that.
I think so. I think yeah, I think so. I think we've been through a lot in terms of getting it ready. I don't feel that I have to insist everything happens tomorrow, but I think that one of the things that has been proven to me is that if you just you know if you just keep it going and don't let it die, then it will still grow,
Right.
like any good plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So, but I think that's true. It has been like that. And anyway, once I've started to burrow into things, it's fun for me. It's a fun phase this because some people are going to say how terrible this is and why you're wasting your time. But most people, I'd say in the 90s plus percent, have just seen into what we're doing and giving feedback, and most of them are giving me very positive feedback.
Mm.
And if they give me ideas about what to improve, they're very welcome. So that's been an interesting thing. I mean, I don't think anybody's been saying that we're wasting our time, which is good.
Yeah. I think what's happening for me is that I do feel that there's some people in my life who really get it, who really understand it. A friend of mine, Hillary, has been very supportive and totally gets what we're trying to do and wants to help us. And so I do feel that there are people out there that are gonna help us build this thing. Um, I think part of our challenge is going to be to let people know their the value of this project, which is
Yeah,
telling this story. And one of the things is both of us have an education background. We've both done educating students in various levels, and that so much of this is about having a product at the end that could be used in schools at different levels of education.
indeed, indeed. So, is there any particular message that you'd like to pass on to your future fans in podcasting? Which obviously we're about to create that just by simply having a podcast, surely. So, what would you like to say to your new fans when they arrive, or just anticipating that they might arrive?
Not only are we doing this for the people that started podcasting, but we really are doing this for people that are podcasting now, that are just starting now, because we're going to tell the whole story of the history of podcasting up through this time period. It's going to be over time. We're starting with the early days, but it's going to work all the way through because it is an interesting history. So their history will be part of this process. So I'm really hoping they'll get on board to help support us because it's not just for us; it's for them too.
That's nice. I can't better that. That's nice. Yeah. We just need it on a few T-shirts and sell them now.
Yeah,
What
right,
else would
right.
you like to mention? Anything?
Uh, that it's been a real exciting process to do this and working with you and it's been a uh, it's been not that easy. It's been a lot of work. It's been ups and downs, and we've had various things, including fires, happen to us, and we're still here, and we're still moving forward with it. So there is a certain level of perseverance that we've shown on this project, and hopefully, people will respect that we've kept it going, with despite things that have happened to us.
I think so. People are beginning to abandon various of the platforms that we've used all along without thinking twice about it. So, for example, Facebook. And
Yes.
the interesting thing is, I was thinking, a lot of people are, where shall I go now? And they realize that they're going to be deserting a lot of people. And
Yeah.
it took me back to how it was for me when I first came across Facebook, and very few people are on it. But I quickly worked out a quick way to explain what it is for people. I says it's just like a phone book, but it's got some comments in there, and it's it's got some chats in it, but it's just like a phone book. So think
Yeah.
about if you want to find your cousins or your friends from school,
Right.
particularly,
Sure.
find them there.
Sure.
And actually,
Sure.
if you wanted to sort of wind down from, say, being obsessed by Facebook and being, the way they manipulate you is not nice. I don't like that. But I've learned ways to
Yeah.
just ignore it. All right. So
Yeah.
I would say just wind it down and go back to it just being a phone book.
Yeah.
And
That's not a bad way to look
yeah,
at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just and if you want to go somewhere else and find new friends, well, I've done that with Blue Sky, a little bit with Threads, but it's another meta one, so I'm not too sure about that. But it's some. I said to somebody offhand on Instagram, I said, you know what? I've heard that there are people in Instagram who are planning to just take it over, and once they do that, we'll know we're in the right place. Now, this is completely
Right.
made up. It's a fiction, but they
Right.
fell for it
Right.
because it has to happen. We'll just
Right.
take it over. We'll take it over because we like that one, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah.